Part 1 didn't get close to the bottom of this place. The Ozarks is the kind of region where the more you dig, the stranger it gets. All new facts. Same region. Here are 35 more things about the Missouri Ozarks that are completely real and almost impossible to believe. Big Spring in Shannon County is the largest single outlet spring in the United States. On an average day, it discharges 276 million gallons of water. On a high-flow day, it has exceeded 840 million gallons from a single opening in the ground. It is cold, clear, and continuous regardless of weather. It is one of the most extraordinary hydrological features in North America. Most people have never heard of it. The Ozark cavefish is a blind, colorless fish that lives exclusively in the underground water systems of the Missouri and Arkansas Ozarks, and it exists nowhere else on Earth. It has no eyes at all, not reduced eyes, not vestigial eyes, because it evolved in total darkness over thousands of generations, where sight provided zero advantage. It lives in the same water table that Ozarks residents drink from. The Ozarks has more species of freshwater mussels than any comparable region in the world. Mussel diversity is a direct indicator of water quality because mussels require clean, oxygenated water to survive. The Ozarks supporting this level of diversity is evidence of genuinely exceptional water systems. Several species exist nowhere else. Several are critically endangered because that water quality is degrading faster than conservation can respond. The Hellbender salamander, the largest salamander in North America, lives in the fast-moving, rock-bottomed streams of the Ozarks. It can reach nearly 2.5 feet long and breathes almost entirely through its skin. It has been on Earth largely unchanged for 65 million years. It survived whatever killed the dinosaurs. It is now in serious decline across the Ozarks because streams are warming and silting from agricultural runoff. Something that outlasted the dinosaurs is being beaten by dirt. Missouri is the largest lead-producing state in the United States, and the majority of that production comes from the Ozarks. The viburnum trend in the southeastern Ozarks is one of the richest lead ore deposits ever found. Missouri produces more than 80% of the nation's primary lead, currently, not historically. The Ozarks is actively supplying the lead that goes into batteries and ammunition across the country right now. Almost no one outside the mining industry knows this. The second major battle of the Civil War was fought in the Ozarks. Wilson's Creek, near Springfield, on August 10, 1861, was the first major Civil War battle west of the Mississippi. Over 2,500 men were killed, wounded, or captured in a single day. Union General Nathaniel Lyon became the first Union general killed in combat during the war. The battle determined that Missouri would remain in the Union, and it shaped the entire Western theater, but it gets a fraction of the attention given to Bull Run, which happened 3 weeks earlier. The Bald Knobbers were a post-Civil War vigilante group in Taney County that started as a legitimate attempt to enforce order when courts had collapsed. They became the threat they were created to stop within a few years. By the late 1880s, they were carrying out beatings and murders. The Missouri governor deployed the militia to dismantle them, one of American history's cleaner lessons in what happens when a community builds justice outside the law. Meramec Caverns near Stanton was marketed for decades as a hideout used by Jesse James and his gang. Serious historians dispute the connection. What is not disputed is that its owner, Lester Dill, essentially invented the modern American roadside billboard campaign, plastering barn-painted ads and bumper stickers across the Midwest when highway tourism was just beginning. The cave is genuinely impressive. The Jesse James story may be entirely invented. Both things made it one of the most visited roadside attractions in America. Ha Ha Tonka State Park contains the ruins of a stone castle on a bluff above the lake of the Ozarks. Businessman Robert Snyder began building it in 1905, and he died in one of Missouri's first automobile accidents before it was finished. It burned in 1942 and was never rebuilt. The roofless stone ruins overlook sinkholes, caves, and natural bridges. They are free to visit, and they look like something from another country. The Gasconade River holds a credible claim to being the most crooked river per mile in the United States. It travels nearly 300 miles to cover a straight-line distance of about 90 miles, and it doubles back so dramatically you can stand on a ridge and see the same river running in 3 directions. A railroad bridge over the Gasconade collapsed on its inaugural run in 1855, killing 31 people in one of the deadliest rail accidents in Missouri history. The river has been causing problems for infrastructure ever since. 11. The Mark Twain National Forest covers 1.5 million acres across the Missouri Ozarks, and most of it is second-growth forest planted on land clear-cut by outside timber companies in the late 1800s. Those operations stripped entire hillsides in less than a generation, then left. The federal government purchased the degraded land during the Depression and began the reforestation that visitors see today. What appears to be wilderness is largely ecological recovery from industrial damage less than 100 years old. 12. Bald eagles winter along Ozarks rivers in numbers that surprise everyone who sees it. The cold, clear rivers, particularly the current, and the stretches below Ozarks dams produce the open water and the fish concentrations eagles need during winter. Hundreds concentrate in the region between December and February. Eagle watching has become a measurable tourism draw. The Ozarks hosts one of the most visible winter eagle concentrations in the lower 48 states, in a region most birdwatchers would not think to visit. Taum Sauk Mountain in Reynolds County is the highest point in Missouri at 1,772 feet. It won't impress anyone from Colorado. But it matters because it means the Ozarks has genuine elevation variation that shapes its weather, its water systems, and its ecology. The summit is accessible by trail, and the view confirms you are standing in terrain with real topographic drama, even if the numbers don't match Western standards. Number 14. Silver Dollar City, one of the most visited theme parks in the American interior, was built around a cave. Marble Cave near Branson was a tourist attraction in the early 20th century, and the theme park grew up around the cave entrance, initially as a showcase of Ozarks crafts and culture. It has expanded into a full-scale entertainment complex. The cave that started it is still there, still open. Most people riding the roller coasters above it do not know the history underneath. Subscribe if you have not yet. We are halfway through and it keeps getting better. Winter's Bone, the 2010 film that launched Jennifer Lawrence's career, was set in the Missouri Ozarks and was based on Daniel Woodrell's novel. Woodrell lives in the Ozarks and has spent his career writing fiction set in the region with a specificity that outside portrayals almost never achieve. Winter's Bone introduced millions of people to the meth economy, family loyalty structures, and survival culture of the deep Ozarks. It is one of the most accurate portrayals of a regional American subculture in modern film. The Osage Nation once controlled the majority of the Missouri and Arkansas Ozarks. At their height, the Osage controlled more territory than any other native nation in North America. They were removed through a series of treaties between 1808 and 1825. They were not conquered militarily, but negotiated out of land in deals whose long-term consequences no one on their side fully understood. The Ozarks has a human history stretching back centuries before the settlers who defined its current identity arrived. 17. The Current River and the 11-Point River are both federally designated wild and scenic rivers, protecting them from damming and restricting development along their banks. Combined with the Buffalo National River in Arkansas, this creates a contiguous corridor of protected, free-flowing water through the Ozarks, unmatched in the American interior. These rivers have run through this landscape largely unchanged for thousands of years. The legal protection keeping them that way is less than 60 years old. 18. The Ozarks has a higher density of sinkholes per square mile in certain areas than almost anywhere else in North America. Sinkholes form when underground cave systems collapse, and in the Ozarks' Karst limestone geology, they are so common in some counties that rural property boundaries have historically been drawn around them. The landscape seen from the air in those areas looks like something pressed down across the terrain repeatedly with a giant thumb. Number 19. Roaring River State Park near Cassville runs one of Missouri's best trout fisheries, in a stream fed entirely by a spring that holds a constant temperature of 57 degrees year-round. That temperature is the same in July and in January. Trout require cold water. The spring provides it permanently. Bennett Spring, Montauk, and Meramec Spring work the same way. Missouri's trout parks all run on Ozarks hydrology. The fish are there because the geology is there. 20. The Shepherd of the Hills, Harold Bell Wright's novel published in 1907 and set in Taney County, was one of the best-selling American novels of the early 20th century, and it is credited with launching Ozarks tourism. Wright was an outsider who wrote an affectionate portrait of the hills. The book sent readers to see what he described. Branson exists in its current form, in part because that novel told people there was something worth seeing in those hills. 21st. The Ozarks contain one of the highest concentrations of endemic species, plants and animals, found nowhere else on Earth, of any temperate region in the United States. The Ozarks' age, topographic complexity, and position at the intersection of multiple ecological zones have produced biological uniqueness. Most people associate with tropical rainforests or island ecosystems. It is not a plateau in Missouri. Vance Randolph spent decades collecting Ozarks folklore, music, and speech in the mid-20th century. Songs, stories, and linguistic patterns came from residents who had learned them from people who had lived in those hills for generations. Much of what he documented has since disappeared from living practice. His work is now irreplaceable. He recorded a cultural world that has mostly vanished before anyone else thought it worth documenting. Number 23. River otters were reintroduced to the Ozarks in the 1980s after being absent from Missouri waterways for over a century when trapping had driven them to regional extinction. The reintroduction is now considered one of the state's most successful wildlife restoration programs. Otters have repopulated river systems across the Ozarks and are regularly spotted by float fishers on the Current and the Jack's Fork. An animal that had been completely eliminated from these rivers is now a common sight on them. The Ozarks dialect preserves vocabulary and grammatical structures linguists trace directly to early modern English forms that have disappeared everywhere else. Words and constructions that were ordinary in 17th century England survived in Ozarks hollows because geographic isolation slowed the linguistic change that occurred in more connected places. Parts of the Ozarks dialect have been described by linguists as the closest living relative of Elizabethan English spoken anywhere in the world. The Battle of Pea Ridge in the Arkansas Ozarks in March 1862 was the largest Civil War battle west of the Mississippi, with over 26,000 soldiers across 2 days. Confederate forces that lost there never again had a serious chance at Missouri. That fight in the Ozarks Hills decided which side Missouri stayed on for the rest of the war. Most people driving through the Arkansas Ozarks have no idea what happened there. Blue Spring on the current river discharges water so cold and filtered it appears an impossible shade of deep blue-green. The color is a function of depth, clarity, and mineral content, not digital enhancement, not algae. It looks altered in photographs because what it looks like is genuinely hard to believe. It is the current river drainage system producing water quality that most rivers cannot match. The Jack's Fork River joins the current at the heart of the Ozark National Scenic Riverways. It was the first national riverway in the United States, established in 1964. The designation was controversial because it required federal land purchase in a region deeply suspicious of federal authority. It now draws over 1 million visitors a year to float rivers that the people who live there took for granted and almost lost. The Ozarks has historically had some of the highest military enlistment rates per capita in the country during wartime, a pattern running from the Civil War through the period after 9/11. The combination of limited economic opportunity and a cultural identity built around service has produced participation rates exceeding national averages across 150 years. The Ozarks sends people to war at rates its political representation rarely matches in veterans' health care and rural services. Fact 29. Alley Spring in Shannon County discharges around 81 million gallons of water per day into a blue-green pool next to a red grist mill built in 1894. It is one of the most photographed natural sites in Missouri. The mill operated until 1917. The spring has not stopped. Shannon County alone contains dozens of major springs. In terms of freshwater spring density per square mile, the county has few rivals anywhere in North America. 30. The Ozarks region covers approximately 47,000 square miles, larger than the state of Ohio. Most people mentally scale it as a scenic backdrop you pass through. At its actual size, it is a geographic entity comparable to entire states, with internal ecological, cultural, and geological variation that most states cannot match. Treating it as a footnote has had real consequences for how little investment it has received. The Ozarks were stripped by organized outside timber extraction in the late 1800s. Railroad lines built specifically to access the trees moved through areas that had never seen industrial logging. Trees that took centuries to grow were gone in decades. Streams were damaged, and hillsides were destabilized. The ancient forest of the Ozarks is mostly recovery from that extraction, not preserved old growth. The industry came in, took what it wanted, and left. 32. The Ozarks contain active moonshine traditions that predate prohibition by at least a century. The combination of isolation, abundant grain, clean water, and cultural independence made home distilling a practical constant long before the federal government taxed and prohibited it. Enforcement during Prohibition was expensive and never successful. Legal craft distilling is now growing in the region, operating openly on the same mountain water that predecessor operations used illegally for generations. Tonka contains one of the most complete examples of karst topography in Missouri: natural bridges, sinkholes, caves, and a collapsed cave ceiling that created an open courtyard feature called the Coliseum. The geological diversity packed into that single state park, combined with the castle ruins above it, makes it one of the most unusual landscapes in the American interior. The entrance fee is a few dollars. Its national profile is nearly zero. 34. Blanchard Springs Caverns in Stone County, Arkansas, in the Arkansas Ozarks just south of the Missouri border, was still being actively explored when the public access sections opened. Parts of the system remain unmapped. The cave includes a room large enough to hold a 10-story building. It is considered one of the most spectacular cave systems in the United States by anyone who has been inside it. It draws a fraction of the visitors that comparable caves in more prominent tourism states attract. The Ozarks is still being discovered. Every year, researchers document new cave systems, new endemic species, new archaeological sites in a region inhabited for over 10,000 years and scientifically studied for less than 200 years. The place most people drive through on the way to somewhere else contains more undocumented biology, more unexcavated history, and more unresolved geological complexity than the country has any idea. Part 1 was not enough. Part 2 is not enough. The Ozarks keeps going. That's 35 more Ozarks facts, all new, all documented, all built to deepen what Part 1 started. Drop a comment with the one that hit hardest. If you found this before Part 1, go back. It is worth it. Subscribe if this channel is what you've been looking for. We are nowhere near done.